Rachel,
Yes.
all the way from Toronto to Las Vegas. How does it feel?
It feels great. It feels great to be here. It's always, I think, it always feels like, oh my goodness, this is a terrible time to be away from the office. Blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then you get here and you're so glad to
This is
be
your first
here.
year as a jury
As
president?
the jury president, yes. I was on the health and wellness jury last year.
So it's
yeah.
your second year in Vegas? For the
Second year in
London International
Vegas,
Awards.
and then I think I did remote the year prior
okay.
in health.
During the
and wellness
pandemic,
health.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you like Vegas? I mean,
No.
we just leave it at
no.
that.
It's not for me. It's not
not
for
for me.
everyone. But I'm delighted to be here. It's nice.
Okay.
The weather's like great.
Oh, the weather's amazing.
But yeah, it's not 100% my vibe, I
Right.
would say. But it's fun. It's fun to be here and look at how everything just is so gigantic and wild. So it's
Okay,
fun that way.
so we're gonna go through 7 questions like the 7 C's, and hopefully we can try to, the baseline of this is like a haste into the mind of the jury president. So I'm gonna hopefully rob you with of stories.
All right.
Okay,
Sure.
so first question: our culture never encourages taking a break. It never encourages saying, "Don't chase the thing." These words come from Robert Downey Jr., a brilliant human being actor who hit rock bottom in the 90s. He went down to the abyss of his personal ocean and climbed his way back up one stroke at a time. He learned an important lesson that goes like this. Sometimes you had to get out of your own way. You work in an industry that is not very keen on slowing down. I don't know what's the pace in Toronto, but I've been told that Toronto is very close to New York
Yep.
as pace.
Yep.
So we work in an industry that doesn't just slowing down. It doesn't like to slow down, but it doesn't like to even take a deep breath. What's your perspective on this?
Absolutely. I think this is such an interesting time in the industry for this question specifically because we absolutely need to continue to innovate, especially in health, in pharma, and,
Right.
and in medical. We need to be pushing to innovate. It doesn't just happen. We need to push hard. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of momentum.
Right.
We need this energy and momentum in the business. But at the same time, I look around the industry and I've never seen so much burnout happening. So we have this need as an industry to push forward, but I have a lot of empathy for that Robert Downey Jr. quote that it's like, you can't just keep, grinding people to dust because then the innovation isn't going to happen. So as agency leaders and business leaders and creative leaders, we need to figure out that balance so that we as an industry are pushing forward. But we need to take care of our people and not assume that the people are just going to just work harder and go
How
harder.
about legalizing 4-day week? Well, what do you think about that?
Oh,
Some industry,
I mean,
some companies are
amazing,
doing
right?
this. Would you do that?
Would I do? I mean, you're asking me creative.
I mean,
Of course I
would
do
you
it.
would you vote for that? Would you be
Yes.
something that you are up for it?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not speaking on behalf of the company right now.
Right.
I personally think it would be wonderful for creativity. It would be wonderful for people
think
to
so
be able
too.
to invest in their personal pursuits, their side hustles, their everything else. I've been chatting with a number of jury folks, obviously, over the past few days and talking about people's side hustles, dance and music and all these kinds of things that people want to be doing. And as we grind more and more of that time away from those pursuits, I think that we suck the creativity out.
Let me ask you. This might be a stupid question, but if it's a 4-day week, would you go Monday, Thursday, or because we all hate Monday, you go Tuesday, Friday?
So I don't know. Okay, now this is an interesting debate, and I haven't done all the math, but my gut says that unless clients in this industry, unless clients go to 4 days a week, we still need people there Monday to Friday. So we would need to figure out a staggering system. We would also need to save some money on talent. Like practically speaking, we can't pay people for all the hours, especially it's very much an hourly business in a lot of cases. So we would need to figure out that balance. But if we can figure that out, if we can figure out how to, sell the hours that we're buying and have the coverage that we need through the week, I don't see why not. I don't see why not.
Look, fish don't know they are in water. If you try to explain it, they probably say, water, what's water? They are so surrounded by it that it's impossible to see. They can't see it until they jump outside, and then they can't live without water. And they probably recognize that they need water. These experts come from a book titled Hell Yeah or No. And when I first read it, I was like, I wouldn't say shocked, but I was like fascinated because it's such a simple statement, yet like it make you think. Now, bridging this into the advertising environments, we don't really like, function without being trapped in this bubble, which is the advertising. And probably if someone from the outside world comes in, it will find us completely brainwashed, for lack of a better word. Does it happen to you that you feel like a fish in a water? You don't even know that you are in this bubble, but you do actually have all these kind of like signals, or you are comfortable. Do you feel sometimes trapped in a bubble, or you say, well, that's the way it is, and it can be changed?
Interesting. That's a hard question to answer if you're inside the bubble, right?
Right. How can
you don't know you're in the
answer?
bubble.
You don't know.
How could I
I
answer?
know. It's like asking someone how does chocolate taste.
Yeah.
Taste it.
I mean, it's like the boiling frog idea that, you turn up the temperature and you turn up the temperature a little bit by a little bit, and the frog just is like, well, this is just the way it is. I don't know. But no, it's an interesting question. And it kind of goes back to your first question, the conversation around 4-day week and things like that. What is within our control, I think, is an interesting question that we're not seeing as being in our control.
Well, yes. On that, I would say there are layers. In life, there are layers to it. So in our control is your immediate universe, right? So you do work and live in a certain kind of environment, and to a certain extent, that environment may be like outside your control. But the very first layer, the inner layer that like encapsulate you, that is your universe, your family, your friends. Like, you can affect that, and eventually, as a ripple effect, by affecting the very first layer of your universe, it's gonna be affecting like the outer layer. So, I don't know. Do you think that the statement that we live in a bubble, it is true?
Oh, I think everyone does.
And do you
It's
feel
culture.
like this bubble get bursted sometimes, and we sneak aside and say, "Oh, where?"
I think so, and I think we might be very much in that moment right now.
Okay,
We have a new
that's good.
generation of creatives who are coming up with, a Gen Z expectation of what work's going to do for them and what they're going to do for work. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the end of this journey. We're sort of in a transition point, and it's very difficult to see how we're going to, where things are going to evolve to. But I do think that the pandemic and now Gen Z coming up with a different set of expectations has created an environment where we're all questioning, what is our relationship to work? What should we be changing? What is optimal? And it's not just, I think that the Gen Z kind of conversation is around more sort of how can I reduce the burden of work in my life, or the presence of work in my life, which is very different than when I came up, and it was like we were all just, I can't believe we get a chance to
so
like,
grateful.
make a commercial. And I still feel that way, and I'm so grateful that I do, and that I've had that experience. But I do think that it's making us ask the question, what role should work play in my life? What else do I want in my life? And how can I construct a life and a work life that excites me and that is sustainable, that I can be doing for, decades and decades, and not just
That's
10,
good.
15 years.
This is a story of 4 oceans and multiple transatlantic trips that converge into one night. It's 1980, Rome. We are in Trastevere. I don't know if have you ever been to Rome?
No, I haven't actually.
Gosh, we should just end this
Yes,
podcast
we
right
probably
now.
should. It's
I'm
for the best.
kidding.
It's for the best.
It's like, no, I'm kidding. But you should. There is like Trastevere is
should.
a
I can't
neighborhood
believe
Rome, which is like amazing. 1980, we are in Rome in a restaurant. That night, an Italian journalist by the name of Gianni Minà is having a dinner with Muhammad Ali, who happens to be in Rome. Now, Robert De Niro is also in Rome that night, and he's shooting like Once Upon a Time in America with Sergio Leone. Serendipity wants that also Gabriel Garcia Marquez is there in Rome that night, hearing that Muhammad Ali is having like dinner with this journalist, Gianni. They all call Gianni and ask if they can join. So There's a picture, and you can find it on the web, of that particular night where you have this Italian journalist, and around the table you have Robert De Niro, Muhammad Ali, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It couldn't get better than that, right? If you were to book a table with 4 seats of the people that truly influence you, had an impact on your life, who would they be? Names. I want names.
Oh man, it's very hard not to put my parents at that table when you talk about influencing your life. So I don't know, maybe I'll give them a couple seats.
A couple seats, maybe on a different table,
Yeah,
maybe right there,
yeah,
overlooking
exactly.
my table.
Exactly. You know, my people, I think about this often, and I have this conversation often, like who influenced your career? And it's not always the people who you most admire, but there's something happened, and it was probably more about you and where you were at that point in your journey that you were able to absorb a lesson. For example, one that I often refer back to is my very first boss out of college, my first job, my first boss was going through an incredibly difficult personal time when I started working with her. And I was brand new, had no idea what the job was, didn't know what I was doing as a writer. And she just wasn't able to be there. She was away. She was dealing with other stuff. She'd come in at night and I wasn't there, so we didn't cross paths at all. So I just did my best. And I was like, what do I do? So I would just try to figure something out, and I would make a suggestion, and I would leave it in her inboxes back when you had like a physical box on your desk that you'd leave actual papers in. So I'd leave her stuff, and the next day she would leave something on my desk, and we'd go back and forth that way. And throughout the at one point she said, just thank you for doing that. Like, just thank you for taking that initiative and figuring it out and moving things forward. And I realized how much it meant to her. And if that experience hadn't happened at that particular time, I don't know that I would have been as industrious as I became. Like, the reward for going above and beyond, and it was just circumstantial. You know, if she'd been there and she had given me a list of all the things I was supposed to do, right, I wouldn't necessarily have discovered how valuable and how much I could do.
Are you still in contact with her?
No, she was a terrible boss. I don't invite her to the dinner because I don't want to hang out with her. But
at the event,
I am grateful for the experience, and it was thoughtful, and it was very generous of her to give me that feedback. I just realized it's not you. I was talking about someone else. But I am grateful for the experience. She was not a terrible boss. Yeah, no, I'm not in contact with her.
Okay, that's one seat. We are like 3 seats left.
Oh, man. Okay, so let's give my parents a couple.
So then 1 seat left.
3. Okay, so a dear friend of mine, and she would be invited. Another story that I tell her, or that I recall, is another tiny moment when I was having a work situation, and I felt that I'd screwed something up with a client. And I said, she didn't even give it a thought. She just said, oh, you'll just fix it. You'll just fix it. It was the most offhand comment. But there was something so empowering about, I can fix it. Like, I don't just have to accept that I've messed up. I can fix it. Now, what am I going to do to fix it? And it just completely changed my perspective. And again, it was fairly early in my career, so it was really formative that you can change things. Like, you don't just wallow in pity, you don't just sort of accept, but you can always change things. It was one of the most empowering moments. I'm sure she has no idea that this happened. I'll ask her next time I see her. But it was a really important
That's
moment
awesome.
for me as well.
What kind of restaurant would it be?
What kind of wrestling?
Restaurant.
A restaurant. I was like, wait a minute, I think I misunderstood this whole question.
What kind of restaurant?
What kind of restaurant? Oh, I always think of sushi first whenever it's like,
Really?
where am I going to go? It's like sushi first, like Nobu or something. But I eat everything, and I delight in eating everything, and I prefer if people make the choices for me, and I can just,
That's awesome.
I can just eat what's there.
Good. Flowers and plants in the sea are different from those that grow on the ground. They are most resilient. Most of them are perennial, have the ability to survive to great depth at the sea. These things of beauty remind us that despite the harsh environment and the elements we are in, we develop survival mechanism and adapt to the point that survival becomes a new way of life. At Chicago, the office at the Evoke, and part of a leadership team that are responsible, I believe, for like thousands of professionals, how do you manage to stay strong and keep growing? I mean, mostly even in 2023, like, there is there's been like huge up and down. Like, in American market right now, it's quite tough. How do you stay? Okay, let's put it this way, because if I say how do you stay stronger, you probably gonna give me like, the correct answer. I want the incorrect answer. I want like, what do you do in your personal life to stay strong? Do you meditate? Do you take like, 2 hours like away from your phone? Or do you like do something else that has nothing to do with advertising? What do you
Yes,
do? How do you stay?
all of those things. The time away from my phone, I really have to work on. But it is just stepping out of it. And, you can, just because you're senior in an organization or the leader of a lot of people doesn't make you a machine. So it is taking breaks and reconnecting with what makes you a human. We were talking before about kids and family. And I mean, nothing takes you out of work faster than spending time with kids.
You know what I do? And I found that it's so difficult. So my parents are very old. They are like, my dad is 83, true Italian, like, and my mom is 70, 78, is like very old people. And they came to visit me in May. So they have nothing to do with like digitalization, nothing to do with like, they don't even know the mobile phone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my dad doesn't even have a mobile phone. What I found out, and they were at home, like my house in San Diego for like a couple of weeks. During the day, they will like sit after lunch, maybe on the sofa, and for 5 minutes they would just do nothing. Like I would just walk into the room, and they would just like sitting like this, and I would say, "What are you doing?" I would say, "Nothing. I'm just thinking." And I thought it was such a brave act because it would scare the shit out of me right now to just not do anything and just sit on a chair and just think. But from that moment, I've been trying to practice that every single day. Just sit even for 5 minutes doing nothing else, but just like, even though staring at the wall, but just thinking.
Well, that's meditation, isn't it?
It's a sort of meditation, and so it brought me to think that meditation was even practiced back then by older generations, because it was such an like, I remember my grandma doing the same. I remember my grandfather doing the same. It was very common back then.
Yeah.
But you say you're having a hard time to stay away from your phone.
Well, the phone, it's just always there. I just really do have to put it somewhere else, that it's not in my, you're just so used to having it in your hand. And as soon as there's like a break in your brain, it's like, oh, what's my phone doing? So I think definitely putting it away. And I'm not that bad actually at just sitting, but the phone does fill the time, and I would love to do that 5-minute exercise without the phone. There's always something that you can be doing on the phone. So I think the phone is a bit of a...
Celestial navigation involves reducing celestial measurements to lines of position using tables, spherical trigonometry, and almanacs. It is primarily used at sea, but can also be used on land. Following this method of navigation, the sky becomes your computer board. And navigation becomes also like something completely reliable from on the sky. Applying this method of navigation to our life, do you have what I would say, like what I would call a vision board, where you keep the things that you want to achieve right there before your eyes? Do you have a vision board in your heads, or you're just navigating without any systems, any map?
Yeah, I think that we all had to replace those tools when we started working remotely. So I do have a big like whiteboard in my home office, and I do
physical whiteboard.
A physical one.
So you have a physical navigation board.
Yes, and I very literally put the things on it that I want in my presence, in my peripheral vision all the time, and those things change. But I do think that it is incredibly helpful, and we've all lost that a little bit as we spend so much time staring at the little screen, and we only see what's in front of our eyes at any given time. So I do think that if we're going to be working remotely and from these different environments, we should really think about the environments that we create for ourselves, and the physical environment as well as the digital tools and other tools that we have. But there is such power in the physical environment and what you surround yourself with.
Where do you keep your dashboard?
What dashboard?
Like your whiteboard, where do you keep it?
Oh, it's on the wall. It's huge. It's like 4 feet by 6 feet, so it's a whole wall.
In your office?
Yeah, in the room that I work in at home. So not everybody has that, but it is a luxury, but it's one that I really value.
The most important substance dissolved in the ocean is salt. Everyone knows that ocean water tastes salty. The salt comes from mineral deposits that find their way to the ocean through the water cycle. Salt comprises about 3.5% of the mass of ocean water. Depending on the specific location, the salt content or salinity can vary. At Transatlantic, we believe that everybody is an ocean, and to really get to know somebody, you need to cross the ocean. What's the single most important ingredient that you are made of? Just one.
Trust.
Trust.
Trust is the single most
Trust.
important, although I didn't say that in a very trusting way.
Trust.
Yeah.
So you can be trusted or you demand trust.
Oh, interesting. First and foremost, so I can trust myself. I think
Do
that
you trust yourself?
yes, I do. I trust myself to make decisions that are, they're not always the right decision. There isn't always a right decision, but to make decisions and to stay open-minded enough to know if those decisions were right or not and change them and be fine with that. To find a path forward, to have the energy to move forward, to be able to, make things right. That going back to that early life lesson that, oh, you'll fix it. To be able to make things right if they go off the rails. So I think you have to trust yourself first. But then critically in creative, you have to trust your team. Nobody does this on their own. So really trusting the team that we have a shared vision, a common vision, we're gonna work together. We're all gonna put our energy and our passion into whatever it is we're making and doing, into it being successful. So it's trust in both of those things, but I don't think you can trust someone else until you trust yourself. So I don't think you can do it. I don't think you can be successful without that.
Okay, so you came to Las Vegas to judge some of the best work in the category of pharma and medical. The common belief is that creativity can be restricted to categories. Pure creativity doesn't compete in weight classes like fighters do, and certainly doesn't contemplate the existence of female teams and male teams like sports do. That said, we tend to categorize and label everything that comes our way as a way to better understand what is before our eyes. So what's your point of view on categories?
Oh, I love categories, and that might sound
Sorry.
absurd to say. I love categories.
You love categories
but I
in life?
love in creative and in award shows in particular. I specifically use categories to inspire teams to think of more ways to be creative.
That's very interesting.
So sometimes, people are like, but I have the ad. I'm done being creative. And it's like,
Right.
no. You're just starting. Look at this list of categories and ways that you can bring this idea to life in using audio, using, film, using all these different media, using activations, outdoor, think in all of those terms. So I find award categories in and of themselves, not just a way to sort of assess creativity, but to actually activate creativity. They've done these
So
award
if
shows, they've done
creativity
the work.
was the universe or the globe,
Yeah,
category would be the coordinates.
exactly.
You wouldn't,
exactly.
you don't be able to navigate or have referential point without them.
Well, I mean, that's a sort of a different question, and there it's more like I'm judging pharma and medical, which is a very specific, of all the categories, there are, they all have their own unique sort of rules and all that kind of thing, but it's a very category forward sort of a category. So I think that the category is critical, and we spend a lot of time talking about, is this pharma, is this not pharma, what is pharma, why is pharma even a category in the first place? So we've been talking about that a lot as a jury. So there, the category is very important because it was truly invented in order to inspire more creativity in this very specific space. So staying true to the category is an important part of our job as juries.
Rachel, I can't thank you enough for being on
Thank
board
you.
of Ocean 17. Thank you for taking the time. I know you as a president of jury, you have a very busy schedule. So really thank you, and it was a great ocean crossing.
Thank you. It was great fun. Thanks for the sweet question.
Okay.
All right.